You want free honey? Cute. Here's your starter pack: one sackcloth shirt, half an apology from the village priest, and exactly zero healthcare plans. Honey is the medieval Bitcoin. Everybody wants and nobody counts the casualties. Charlemagne once demanded his own hives because nothing says Holy Roman Emperor like putting the peasants' hands in live wasp grenades. You dream of one of the poo, but the reality is more jackass medieval edition. You get honey or you get hospitalized. Sometimes both. Let's do the math. There are over 50 bees in a healthy hive during peak summer. Good news, only about 1,000 will find you at once. The rest are busy plotting your downfall on the inside. You show up with a bucket and a borrowed veil that smells disturbingly like cheese, feeling brave. Your reward, a rolling wave of rage that moves like a turbulence alert for your face. Smoking the hive only makes them woozy and mad. A medieval vape cloud over an army with knives strapped to their butts. Fun fact: the average medieval peasant has 3 teeth, 0 odds, and a 90 chance of regretting this before breakfast. Fuss musk, more like face guess. The protective suit is a suggestion, not a guarantee. The best armor available: a moldy robe, divine intervention optional. Your only tool is a rusty knife, nice and dull, so you can savor the moment. The gloves are old enough to vote. No beekeeper's manual, just exaggerated promises in Latin and the wind screaming mistake. Pay attention, you're not robbing the bees, you're applying for a daily internship in pain management. Compensation: a teaspoon of honey and nightmares that sting. Every time you prise open the hive lid, the local wildlife reviews you like Yelp meets saw. Atmosphere threatening. Service sudden unwelcome stings. Decor blood and sticky regret. Pray it's not August. The honeys peak, the bees are organized, and you're sweating so hard your skin is basically medieval Gatorade. Pro tip: screaming scares the bees. Not screaming just saves time. The smoker is a bundle of damp straw currently smoldering in your left hand and your will to live. Bees interpret your trembling as a declaration of war. A single slip and you meet the queen, not a fairy tale matriarch but a brooding, egg-laying machine ringed by her murder squad. Notice how the hum changes when you reach for the comb. What was gentle becomes apocalyptic. The drones are useless, the workers are ruthless, and if you trip you get a fussful of ecology. No bees, no honey, no problem. Just you, your regrets, and the sensation of your veins trying to make an escape. The monks in white robes next door. Sure, they want your honey for holy medicine, but don't look for backup. Brother Bartholomew set his last apiary on fire and called it a miracle. You're alone in this. The herbal remedies he offers are mostly alcohol and denial. That cough syrup he brews in a cracked cauldron. It's 10 honey, 90 surprise. You still drink it. After half a hive in your eyeball, hygiene is mostly theoretical. On feast days you'll see the brothers circling your wounds with mint, while chanting, which is less about healing and more about plausible deniability. If you survive, congratulations, you become a citation in the monastery's next miraculous recovery scroll. You think you're prepared. Try explaining to your family why your lips are the size of turnips. Good thing Pliny the Elder said bee stings cure gout, arthritis, and probably bad luck. Science questionable but still trending after 1,000 years. You're in pain, covered in honey, and convinced you've invented a new fashion, the pustule look. Bees only lose their stingers once, but you, lucky you, get to lose your dignity every time. Bee venom is medieval Botox, guaranteed to plump, tighten, and make your face unrecognizable. Your wrists itch. Your jaw swells. Tomorrow you might not fit through the door. The only upside: honey does make a decent wound dressing. This is the original multitask. Disinfect your cut with nature's syrup even as you're screaming in Latin. Multum dulce, multum dolor. Still sticky. Still not rich. Hopes up. Good. The bees are evolving faster than your exit plan. One slip and the entire colony. In your hair, your shirt, your personal philosophy. Your beekeeper neighbor. His legacy is a gravestone with "died for dessert" chiseled in Latin. The honey glows like treasure in your battered hands, right before a hornet shows up and makes it absolutely not your day. Nobody warned you that every summer brings new competitors: the bears, the wasps, the neighbor who's just looking. Your only defense is a prayer and a stick, which is what passes for legal aid in this field. Split the profits with the church, the landlord, and the random knight who claims he owns these bees by right of conquest. By payday, your yield is a bruised ego and whatever honey you licked off your own arm. You think this is over. Classic mistake. Next week, the mead brewers want your harvest. The doctor demands fresh wax. The tax collector shows up asking where you hid the jars. Suddenly, it's not about honey, it's about survival. Your legacy: a dozen swollen fingers, a sticky death wish, and the chance that maybe, just maybe, you'll get a mouthful before winter. Like but for pain. Still sore. Still broke. Honey's free, but you pay in blood. You think you're clever, you want honey. You want medieval honey, organic, artisanal, probably full of mouse droppings and a side of dysentery. Never mind the warning labels. No one told you the house comes with 40,000 tiny angry tenants whose leases "until death do us part." Your landlord, nature. Zero deposit, all stings up front. So here you are, medieval genius at work, standing outside a nightmare fortress, your smoldering, buzzing hive. The plan: smoke them. Not a euphemism. Someone, maybe Aristotle, maybe just Steve from the next hut, decided choking bees with burning horse pus was an IQ-boosting life choice. Modern influencers have YouTube. You have burning dung and the unspoken prayer: please don't swarm my face. That's technology medieval style. Fire, fear, and improv. You suffocate them. The bees allegedly get sleepy. Allegedly is back of the scroll science for we have no idea. Just set something on fire and hope you make it to Sunday Mass. Sometimes the bees chill. Sometimes they just identify you as a threat, lock you into their neural LinkedIn, and shutlust you for vengeance. Getting high on your own supply means something different here. It's the smoke, the adrenaline, the incoming swarm. Safety advice. The medieval beekeeping manual fits on the side of a matches box. Don't die. That's it. No diagrams, no safety warnings, just the assumption that you know how to keep your blood on the inside. There's always that split second: did you use enough smoke? Too much? Was the wind blowing east, or did you forget to sage your shoes last Michaelmas? Should you have bribed the bees with wildflowers or confessed your sins to the nearest chicken? Saints, relics, magic words, chicken bones. The actual recipe for medieval bee tamming: ritual humiliation, open flames, and a lot of pre-sting bargaining. Nothing says master of nature like sweating in sackcloth while desperately blowing smoke at an insect army that thinks it's defending Valhalla. Let's talk tech, because nothing spells medieval genius like progress by trauma. You don't get a beekeeping suit or tuk-tuk tutorial. You get itchy hemp rags, a ragged hood, and some extra long sleeves if your spouse still likes you. For tools, a misshapen fork, 5 toothpicks, and enough unresolved trauma to start a therapy cult. They're all you have between sweet victory and the medieval version of a tuk-tuk fail compilation. Some genius tried to invent bee houses. A woven haunted basket called a scup, like but for pain. Bonus. Sometimes the hive ended up with a dead mouse because rodents apparently crave the world's worst charcuterie board. This is the high-tech marvel of your day. A mud-covered basket that doubles as a stinger delivery system and a rumor mill for neighbors' curses. Still, you want more. More honey, more wax, more congratulatory pats from the village priest. You learned from best beekeeping heavyweights like Huldagut of Bunjun, who wrote about bee phlegm and medicinal stings because nothing says health like voluntary swelling. Trip to the healer. No thanks, just hand me a bee and a stick. Oh, you've got a medieval cold. Here's a sting to the neck and a warm mug of mead. They call it natural remedies, you call it DIY euthanasia. Every new trick, better smoker, cleaner hive, just means one more way to get hurt by optimism. Death wish, genius. Call it a career path with a 0% retirement rate. Gloves, not medieval. You go barehanded, all trust and trembling, and you hope your medieval life insurance will scrape you up after the bee lord takes you. Face nets. For soft nobles and city folk. Out here your only protections may be a prayer mumbled between curses. Gloves mean less stings, but you're already one infection away from a plague cameo. The real risk, going back for more. Honey's nice, but your body count's rising, probably higher than the local death rate from natural causes, which is shorthand for mauled by cheese bees or neighbor's pig. This is medieval innovation in action. You light a pile of damp straw, inhale carcinogens, and walk into hell's loudest rave, bucket in hand. No one's cheering. No one's helpful. If you're lucky, you harvest honey. If you're not, you get bumatarud, an actual phrase because even monks needed a word for dying pointlessly at work. The aftermath. Victory is sticky, smoky, and slightly haunted. Wax in your hair, welts on your arms, a bucket of honey guaranteed to contain at least 4 insect bits and possibly a medieval curse. Still worth it. Your hands shake, your ankles itch. You check for stingers, count your bruises, and whisper, next time. So go ahead, call yourself a medieval genius. History calls you lunch, still not dead, still chained to the hive. No air, no help, no way out, but hey, at least you got the honey. You wanted fashion. Here's your starter kit, sackcloth, welts, and that lovely panic sweat. Forget runway. In medieval beekeeping, the only model walk is hobbling through nettles, flailing at clouds of angry insects that collectively decided your face is a crime against be kind. Silk. That's for the queen, and you're not even third in line, unless you count stings. Still think you get a hat? Sure. If you count a lumpy scrap draped over your head, furrowed with holes that let in sunlight, rain, and your enemies. No chin strap. No insect-proof mesh. Just you and gravity staring down 6,000 tiny propellers with anger management issues. Your DIY crown wants to be armor but fails spectacularly, like a fence made of noodles. It gets better. You wrap yourself in what is essentially a potato sack cinched with hope, and somehow this is protective gear. Think hazmat suit, but designed by a sadistic farmer and stitched together with prayers and visible wounds. Tape, zippers, forget it. The most advanced fastening technology is tying a knot badly. Every seam a potential entry point for flying rage syringes. And don't forget the veil, burlap threads loose as your grip on sanity, blocking exactly 0B attacks and 100 of your dignity. Night vision goggles would be nice. Instead, you get eye holes that might as well be a sign reading, "Insert stinger here." Let's talk accessories. The real power move isn't jewelry, it's trying to cram smoking moss into an old clay pot while bees treat you like a living piñata. You wave your homemade smoke grenade with the flair of a medieval influencer. Please like and subscribe. Except nobody's watching and you're the main course. Bees don't care about your mist cloak. The only thing getting smothered is your last shred of hope. Gloves. Oh, you mean fingerless mittens, holes in all the places you're trying to protect. One size fits none. Supple leather is for the wealthy. Your hands, wrapped in rags or nothing, because dexterity matters when the prize for clumsiness is turbocharged acupuncture. The lesson: every accessory is a new risk vector, a fresh opportunity for pain, and invitation to humiliation. Don't forget the scent. Your sackcloth traps sweat like a confession booth in July, plus a note of whatever fungus grew in your hut last winter. Remember, hygiene is a concept the church hadn't invented yet. Honey is supposed to be the reward, but even the combs reek by noon. You walk home, every joint sticky, every pore a target. Medieval perfume, 3 stings to the armpit and a cold wind. What did Fashion Week get you? Blisters, raw wrists, and a bonus ecosystem of lice and mites all thriving under your makeshift shroud. If there was a medieval Met Gala, you'd fit right in next to Peasant with Gout and Miller's Wife in Mud. Trend forecast, swollen, sullen, and undeniably beige. If you're lucky, the hive only boils over once. If not, hey, how do you like facial swelling as a lifestyle? Take one look at a medieval woodcut of a beekeeper swollen like a pufferfish at a bake sale, eyes blinking through hives they didn't ask for. There's a nice symmetry between you and your product. Both sweet, both oozing. Let's pause for the spa experience: crushed grass in your boots, dead bee in your ear, and welts tracing regret across your forearms. No amount of honey will buy off the herbalist who's seen this before. Every idiot in sackcloth convinced their home-stitched veil was different this time. He hands over nettle ointment and holy water. You ask for blissful unconsciousness. He just laughs. But maybe you thought being a beekeeper came with medieval respect. Oh, honey, you're just a walking cautionary tale, a punchline about sackcloth and stints in the apothecary's back room. Next Fashion Week, maybe just wear moss. But wait, you say, weren't beekeepers important? Sure, in the way rats are important to the Black Death. People want your honey and wax, not your medical records. You limp to market, haggling for bandages with what's left of your dignity. Locals only talk to you from a distance, convinced you're contagious. Maybe you are. Still, you crawl out of the field, sticky, buzzing, NAMED in the records by chroniclers with nothing better to write. Sackcloth bees and a side of regret. Still not dead. At least not famous. Someday someone writes a book about beekeeping heroes. Guess which chapter is missing your name? You're the queen, sort of. At sunrise, you're kneeling in muddy straw, squinting through a swarm of airborne razor blades, and for 3 minutes, while everyone gawks, you're blessed by the local priest as protector of this sticky empire. Majestic right. Guess how long the divine glamour lasts. Hint: it's the time it takes Brother Peter to finish the bread and start asking for free samples. Because here's the secret nobody tells you: queen bees get worshipped, beekeepers get worked. One ceremonial flower crown, 5 months of unpaid labor, and exactly 0 thank yous. You're invited to every feast as entertainment. Did she really get stung there? The answer is yes. Always yes. Even your tools are a setup. The smoker you were so excited about. It's just grandpa's cracked kettle stuffed with whatever dry weeds the novices didn't smoke themselves. Spoiler: it calms the bees about as well as reciting the Lord's Prayer to a wasp's nest. And after the 4th sting on your eyelid, everyone agrees the swelling makes you look holy. One of the novices starts calling you Saint Pufferface. The nickname sticks, unlike the bandages. Medieval records mention keepers like Johanna of Kent, credited for her gifts to the abbey. Translation: she donated so much honey she couldn't afford lunch. You have the honor of feeding your landlords, while they debate your salary, your hygiene, and how aggressively you mumble at clouds. Like Uber, but you drive the bees, and the 5-star reviews are just more chores. Your protection from the saints: a nailed-up scrap of parchment that says very loosely, God loves bees. Nothing about loving you. The only true defense is to run faster than the kitchen boys. And every time the abbess tries your honey, she reminds you how it used to taste, more divine. Helpful. So helpful. It's not about the bees. It's about extraction. Village nobles line up with empty pots and an empty conscience. Need a break? Ha! The Lord Steward needs more beeswax to polish the flagellant's chains. You get paid in God's favor and a fresh set of welts. Medieval payday: last one to faint gets the leftover turnip mash. Want to unionize? Good luck. The last time a peasant asked for an extra loaf, he became part of the compost pile. You whisper your wish for paid holidays into the hive. The bees answer by crawling up your sleeve and stinging your opinion silent. There's solidarity in suffering, but no change in policy. Still chained, still not dead. No vacation days. No, I feel sick. Just you, the hive, and a list of quotas longer than your lifespan. Bees swarm in July, debt swarms in December. Nobles pocket profit, you pocket pain. The abbess prays for your soul, while eyeing your only pair of socks as festival swag. You are the divine go-between, the mystical caretaker, the peasant who's accidentally a production line. Facts: your average medieval beekeeper makes 4 pounds of honey for the manor, keeps half a pound for her own bread, and hands over the rest as gifts. If the weather goes bad, forget about it. No bees, no honey, no excuses. The grain taxes still show up, only now you get blamed for the rain. And if a bear comes through and wrecks your hives, welcome to your new job as bear deterrent. With a broom, no armor, don't have enough wax for the Easter candles. The village priest blesses his own shoes and stomps through your hut looking for hidden comb. Get caught keeping a little on the side, that's theft. Unless the vicar needs arthritis balm, then suddenly it's a donation. The rules change hourly depending on who's watching and what favor you owe. And when you do slip, when the honey yield sags or the bees ghost you for a better tree, take a wild guess who's to blame. Not the abbot, not the village, just you, and if you're lucky, a single crust of honeycomb no one else wanted. Still sticky, still stung, still not dead. For now. Most days you feel the invisible crown pressing tighter. More ceremonies, more bites, more ways to fail. You want the queen's treatment. Start practicing regal gratitude for splinters and bruises. Your legacy, a paragraph in some monk's ledger she produced, sometimes. The bees at least remember your shape, mostly so they know where to aim when you show up late. So you scrape your hands clean, smile for the crowd, and kneel again. Still queen, still pauper, still not free. You tell yourself bee stings aren't that bad. Sure, if you've never met a bee, never tripped face first into a medieval apiary, never felt 20,000 angry needles screaming your sins into your skin. But you want the honey right. You want those sticky jars to impress your neighbors who already suspect you talk to insects. There's no pain like the pain you earn. Medieval beekeeping isn't the friendly garden hobby you saw on that lifestyle show, unless your favorite episode ended with the host locking herself in a burning shed. There's no suit, no gloves, no mesh veil. Just a floppy hat if you're lucky, and whatever prayers you can stuff in your ears. The abbey spends more on altar candles than protective gear. Priorities, apparently. Here's the technique: don't flinch. Don't swat. Pretend you're a terribly bored statue. If you scream, you're dead, because bees can hear fear, and also because Alan the miller is watching and you don't need another, the bee weeper nickname making the rounds at the tavern. You can't afford a bad reputation in a town where people still consider bleeding an acceptable hobby. Your tools. Imagine a kitchen fire with a branch and a hope for the best. You wave a smoldering rag, which basically means, in 3 minutes everything will be on fire, including your eyebrows. Smoke isn't for you, it's to confuse the bees. Spoiler, it mostly confuses you. Try holding your breath while thick, greasy smoke crawls into your eyes, your nostrils, your very medieval soul, and the bees still find new places to sting you. Is there a patron saint for "I wish I'd been born allergic"? There is now. Stings aren't an if. They're a when, a how many, a why did I think this job would get me out of the latrines. Yesterday it was your hands. Today an ambitious drone goes for your nose. Nobody wants to bring back honey with snot and tears mixed in. You try distraction, reciting prayers, reciting food supplies, reciting every curse you know, until you realize bees can somehow sting through 3 layers of wool. Yes, you checked. You're doing all this so the local lord can dip his meat in honey and call it luxury. You meanwhile are still not screaming. The art of beekeeper calm is just masochism with a tutta brand. Think yoga, but every pose ends in spasms and regret. There are no medals. There's only the desperate hope that you'll get away with fewer than 50 stings today, because last week you lost count at 30 and blacked out somewhere between the third and fourth hive. Let's not talk about what happens when you drop the comb. Actually, let's. Because that's when you become a medieval festival star attraction, angry bee's clumsy puppet, and every child in the village laughing as you do the dance of accidental pain. The noise of a dropped honeycomb is about as subtle as a church bell to bees. They take it as a declaration of war. Afterwards, your only prize is a handful of crushed honeycomb and the world's worst word of mouth. Fun fact: in 1320, Brother Wolfred tried to recite psalms while collecting honey. He reached Amen with lips the size of sausages and a new respect for the wrath of nature. You try bargaining. A quick prayer to Saint Gubnut, patron of bees and people on bad terms with God, and maybe a vague promise to donate a comb. Spoiler: the saints don't negotiate with pain. Even the nuns sometimes sneak an apple just to watch you try to prove your method. The town expects you to be grateful, as if honey production is a mark of civilization and not another reason to die face down in the mud. If you brag about how little you screamed today, you're vain. If you admit you wept into the cheesecloth, you're a weakling. Silence is pride, pride is pain. Which one is the virtue again? Never mind. You lose either way. Nobody cares that your knuckles look like beets, that you might never fully close your right eye again, that your free sample for the Lord cost you 2 days of fever and a rash in places only the confessional should know about. When the old women at church ask how many times you were stung, you shrug and say fewer than the rats. Statistically true, statistically bleak. Still, nobody else lines up for the beekeeper's job. This is survival by stubbornness. No air, no help, no way out. Pride and pain become your only constants, until someone else drops a comb and you're not the joke for a week. And still you're not allowed to scream. Not around the girls, meaning the bees, also the nuns, also anyone who's ever seen you cry during Lent. The honey is sweet, but the scars stick longer. You leave the field reeking of smoke and sweat, honey stains in places you can't mention at church, a dozen stings on your left ear, and the feeling that, by not shrieking, you've won something. Spoiler: it's not dignity. It's tetanus. Still chained. Still not dead. Picture it suburbia, but with less vinyl siding and more pitchforks. Nothing says love thy neighbor like waking up to the sound of torch-wielding peasants arguing about your bees. Because if you're a medieval beekeeper, neighborhood watch isn't watching for thieves. It's watching for you and your sticky winged death machines. Shocker: people like honey. Less of a shocker: people hate being stung in places they can't pronounce. One prankster's free combs for all is another serf. Burn down the fire hazard shack before bees come through my chimney again. Like an episode of Survivor, but everyone's allergic and nobody voted for you. People whine about modern HOAs, but at least Susan from number 12 only reports you for your garbage bins. In 1342, Juff from next door had a simpler regulatory process: build your hives near my sheep. Not on my watch. You dream about property values, but you get midnight mob justice. Remember, this is a world where livestock theft gets you hanged, but accidentally unleashing thousands of angry insects is just Tuesday. Some towns actually write rules about how close you're allowed to put a hive, because nothing keeps friendships alive like legally mandated insect distances. 15 paces from William's well or else, says the mayor, who definitely isn't allergic to bee stings. No, sir. It's the medieval equivalent of arguing with the HOA, only your penalty isn't a fine. It's losing your shed to arsonists with a side of pitchfork. Complaints escalate at a speed that would impress a modern customer service manager. A few bees in someone's soup and suddenly, there's Frajuk teaching everyone how to burn a thatched roof, loudly, and with precision only the truly petty can achieve. You think talk it out is an option, but your village's version of mediation involves more kindling than discussion. Thomas of Kuntumpra, a monk with too much free time, writes advice literature about controlling venomous neighbors. He means bees. Your neighbor means you. If you have to read between the lines, it's because they're on fire. Want real examples? In certain German towns, a beehive spotted too close to the parish could trigger fines or collective relocations, which is medieval for get out and take your bugs with you or else. French legal rolls document neighbors banding together like an impromptu pest control startup, loading wagons with smoky bundles and solving the problem before sunrise. One day you're sharing honey, the next you're defending your hives from Bunaduct, who's convinced your bees killed his pig and maybe his wife's sense of dignity. Medieval England. Same energy. By 1420, courts were sorting out cases where burnt-out shacks proved that sometimes fix it yourself literally meant with fire. Your honey might earn you church favor, but not enough to override the smell of burning wax drifting through the village square. You want a peaceful coexistence, but your neighbors watched half their pigs die last winter and they're looking for a win. Suddenly, the beekeeper caused my rash is the hottest hot take on the street. You, the quietly industrious apiculturist, are now patient zero for the rushuckle-ups, the human embodiment of do not disturb. One dry summer and you're an arson magnet, because nothing says, I care, like throwing burning straw through someone's window and calling it pest control. Bylaws and neighborly guidelines. Meaningless. The only rule enforced with consistency is blame the beekeeper. It's frontier justice, one stinging accusation at a time. No surprise some neighbors weaponize bureaucracy as easily as fire. Reports go to the reeve who files your name, right below last month's dung theft. Now if a single bee lands on the village priest's chalice, guess who's airing out their mattress? You, the sweet neighbor, getting smoke instead of small talk. Medieval small claims court is just an angry circle of villagers shouting rhyme curses until someone starts a bonfire. Like but for pain. If you aren't burned out, you're iced out. You bring a honey cake to church. They call it poison. Stand too close at market. Suddenly everyone's very interested in salt, not sweet. Word spreads like plague rumors. Your bees killed old Ugnasa's chickens, made the brewer's ale go sour, caused that itchy spot under the reeves' tunic. News flash, your bees have magic powers. Congratulations, still chained, still not dead. Here's your real legacy: paranoia, envy, and smears stick around longer than the honey. You're forever one wrong wind from the next village bonfire. This isn't just a quirk of medieval life. It's a recurring, relentless referendum on whether your contribution is worth their inconvenience. The beekeeper's lot, hoarding sweetness in a world that prefers the taste of smoke. Curtain falls, bees rise. You'd think God's favorite middle managers, monks, would spend their days humming hymns, not running black market honey rings. Wrong century, wrong continent. You wake up one morning ankle deep in bee corpses and find Brother Bartholomew eyeing your hives like a Wall Street raider. Welcome to buzzing payroll. The money stays with the men in robes while you get the privilege of financing their enlightenment. With stings. Monastery life, less tranquil chanting, more corporate hostile takeover. You imagine Benedictines as peaceful gardeners, but here's the real division of labor: monks in gold-tipped sandals, peasants in bee-welted rags. Ora ut lubka, they preach, pray, and work. Except half the work is watching you haul honey to the abbot's table without sneaking a taste. Drop a jar and you're one papal bull away from being reassigned to leech collection. Notice that the monastery always eats first. You get the empty combs. Like DoorDash, if DoorDash stole your wallet and replaced your lunch with a quote about humility. Here you're not a beekeeper, you're compulsory staff. Divine obedience, they call it, which turns out to mean harvesting enough honey for the abbot's gouty breakfast and the scriptorium's ink. Yes, monks wrote with honey. Sticky fingers, more like sticky doctrine. The Benedictine rule could have been subtitled, How to Annoy Your Local Peasant and Profit. Try reading the fine print. The only guaranteed benefit is holy guilt and maybe a mild allergy. There's no take your honey home policy. Every drop is inventoried with the zeal of IRS agents chasing a billionaire. Ever try bartering honey for a scrap of bread? If the monks catch you, even just sniffing commerce, expect an ecclesiastical audit, sudden questioning the local priest, just happening to drop by and a page from Leviticus slammed on the table. Render unto Caesar right, except Caesar now wears a cowl and his hands are stickier. Congratulations, your neighborhood's first medieval compliance officer has arrived. Want to keep a jar for yourself? Maybe swap a little for bread. Cute. Time to tithe so aggressively you wonder if bees accept Venmo. If you hide a honeycomb, you're excommunicated faster than you can say misappropriation of waxy assets. Hide two and find yourself starring in the medieval version of The Apprentice, get stung on camera until you cry, then fired anyway. Don't forget there's no NDA. Gossip is a sacrament. Word spreads faster than a plague rat. Bees never sleep, and neither does the abbot's bottom line. Want to quit? Sorry, you're under holy obligation. This only union recognized here wears chunmal and has papal endorsement. The peasants can't strike, they can only develop novel ways to look pained at morning prayers. Back problem. Get in line. Hive collapse. Pray harder. You're living in the HR department from hell. Except HR is literally staffed by a dozen silent, robed men who think profit margins are evidence of God's favor. Don't forget the monastery's idea of an employee benefit is letting you keep the swelling from your last sting. If you need a raise, just try working barefoot. Swarm on toe, instant promotion to saint. You know what else monks invented besides silent desperation? Mead. So at least your boss is drunk pious and demanding tribute to the church be fund. The wellness plan is boiling nettles and reciting psalms until your fever breaks, like being told to heal yourself with positive thinking and raw pain. Let's talk performance reviews. Looks like swollen eyes and a quota increase. Annual feedback. Greater humility advised. Please produce 3 additional pounds of honey per fortnight by order of the Holy Spirit's shareholder committee. The monks claim they're above greed, so explain the secret cellars crammed with gold in Combs' monastic surplus, or just the original offshore account. Pray all you want, but God probably invests locally. The only tech upgrade, more bees. No automation, no hives with wheels, just a new swarm and new rules. Don't question why the abbot's jar is always full or how his hands never seem to get stung. Rumor says Brother Thomas keeps a ledger. Tithe evasion rates jar counts worker compliance. You now have KGB with incense. Like it or not, you're just the help. They pray, they chant, they collect all the honey, and if you gripe to the other peasants, you'll get blessed with a shovel. Still chained to the bees, still not dead. Apparently God loves a cheerful giver, but monasteries, they love honey. Holiness starts at dawn, audit at noon, and by evening you're still surrounded by empty combs, empty stomach, and a full page of Benedictine rules you'll never pass. Keep praying. You're going to need a miracle and a very good ice pack. You want answers, preferably from people who still have faces. Enter the medieval expert, half beekeeper, half threat to public safety, always armed with advice straight from the mouth of rot. Scientific breakthrough. Try moldy shoes but for bees. You know it's bad when the guy telling you how to survive admits his main sources are oak bark, 3 fever dreams, and a recipe he can't read. Stings are good for the blood, he says while dabbing at welts roughly the size of a chicken egg. Can't argue with results when the results are chronic swelling and deep personal regrets. Forget gloves, it's all about the vibes apparently. Someone in stained linens pushes bee bread like it's a Tesla stock tip. You eat it, you get dysentery. That's how medieval science works. Trial, error, funeral. It gets better. There's always a remedy involving animal parts because nothing says advanced medicine like pigeon broth and raccoon toenails. Swollen from wasp stings. Just slap on a compress of raw onions and pig manure, spin in a circle for luck. The real innovation. Surviving long enough to become someone else's cautionary tale. Maybe you crave modern research, double-blind studies, peer review. Medieval reviewers eat worms, call it enlightenment, and blame you for flinching when the hive explodes. University of Paris. Don't laugh. Their beekeeper treatises run on exactly 0 peer pressure and 1 candle away from total oblivion. The big innovation, telling you to trust the bees. Famous last words every time. Take natural, multiply it by hallucinations. Mix in a medieval field guide wrinkled parchment with drawings of insects that look more like demons or roast chickens. See for yourself, says the beekeeper, gesturing at his one good eye. He's somehow both living proof and walking warning sign. He'll sell you honey in a jar so cloudy it doubles as a snow globe, promises it restores humors and keeps mum about the maggots. You hear about Hildegard of Bingen, St. Polymath proto-influencer. Her advice: boil honey with dirt and weep quietly into the cauldron. That's the deep science, alchemy light plus hallucinations. She once prescribed drizzle of beeswax on wounds to balance the bile and purge melancholy. If you survive, the bees might grant wisdom, or a staph infection, sometimes both. This is the era where antibiotics means sending you out behind the barn with a dog and a prayer. Another fan favorite, leech therapy. Bees not available, try leeches. It'll draw out the poison, they say, sidestepping the bit where it probably adds several new infections. If that fails, there's always a poultice made from moldy bread and prayers to 40 saints. It's choose your own adventure, only every ending is gangrene. Here's your pro tip from Europe's medieval Nobel Prize Committee: rub honey everywhere. Just don't come running back when the bees discover your sticky sin and begin the reenactment of the plague's act II. Ever watched someone try to outrun a swarm in a wool tunic? It's a period drama, with screaming. You keep asking for answers and they keep handing you earthworms for strength and prayers for burns. Actual 13th century recipe: mix honey, fire, ash, and the kind of herbs your cousin grows on accident. Then hope something magical happens besides spontaneous combustion. Safety tip: nothing magical ever happens. They insist smoke calms the bees, so they fill the hut with enough fumes to qualify as a barbecue disaster. Eyes burning, lungs screaming, the only thing calmed is common sense. And when the inevitable happens, sudden conversion to cold therapy is recommended, usually in the nearest muddy stream. By the time you're desperate enough to listen, the beekeeper is missing 3 teeth and possibly a finger. He insists raw honey cures everything. He also drinks vinegar for leisure. Would you trust your life to a man who believes in fairies, curses, and mud baths before breakfast? Think evidence-based means anything here. Some treatises survived, mostly because nobody wanted to touch them. Test on the neighbor, they say, and that's probably not a metaphor. Advanced science boils down to copying the guy who looks least mauled. Here's the breakthrough: any method not involving bees directly attacking your face is advanced. Advice is recycled by people who digest mud on purpose and think death is just a networking opportunity. Half the keepers end up legend. The other half, mystery stains, funny smells, and a gravestone that just reads, "Oops." And yes, everyone from the rusty-toothed beekeeper to that one monk with suspiciously swollen hands swears by secret recipes. These involve moon phases, goose grease, and at least one ingredient guaranteed to get you cursed or sued by modern health agencies. The only things less reliable than medieval science: the medieval scientists. Next time you read natural remedies scrawled in 700-year-old Latin, remember these people also thought plague was caused by humid air and goat sadness. Still want answers? Eat some dirt. It's basically peer-reviewed by worms. Still chained. Still not dead. Congratulations, you're ready for publication. You want motivation? Try 3 stings to the hand before sunrise. Medieval espresso. Minus the taste plus the swelling and a whiff of panic. Nature's original wake-up call, except you're not waking up so much as vibrating between agony and existential crisis. Forget sunrise yoga or the promise of freshly ground beans. Sorry, Starbucks, but you can't compete with a bucket of angry insects and no health plan. No cute barista either. Just you, the bees, and the dull certainty that nobody's coming to rescue you from this loyalty program. Here's your morning routine: crawl from your moldy bed, check your hands for open wounds, realize one finger's become its own parish. It's character building, says Brother Alfric, who once fainted when his soup was too hot. Your fingernails are basically test tubes for medieval swelling. Over at the communal trough, your face puffs up like a bashful pomegranate, a look even Tuk-Tuk couldn't spin as a trend. Last week a novice mistook you for a saint's relic and tried to pray you back to normal. Historical fact: the venerable Huldagut of Bunjun claimed bee stings cured gout. You know what else they cured? Your hopes for a career in hand modeling. Seriously, how many healing miracles start with pure undiluted venom? For every cured monk there's a guy shuffling around the yard, one eye swollen shut, shouting about purifying fires. Welcome to Holistic Medicine, sponsored by nature's most vengeful little pharmacists. You think modern hot girl summer is dangerous? Try open hive season surrounded by monks who read Latin better than they handle bees. Don't complain. Bees could be worse. At least they attack you one at a time instead of, say, the local mayor's dog or the cook's ladle after you spill the honey. Of course, if you faint in your own hive box, the bees just keep coming. Like a medieval Black Friday, but you're the only thing on sale. Oxygen. Optional, apparently. You try meditation, mindfulness with a chorus of buzzing haters. Om, ouch, om, ouch. Every sting reminds you you're alive. Or at least you're not dead. Yet, deep breaths are hard when every inhale pulls air through a nose swollen to twice its original size. Massaging your temples turns into an obstacle course over new welts. Even the abbey cat watches you fascinated, as if expecting you to metamorphose into a new species. Sting count. High score by lunchtime. Each welt is a badge: loyalty, stupidity, or just bad reflexes. Even your priest stops offering condolences. Blessings don't cover tetanus or a face that looks like dinner at the torture chamber. For extra fun, try remembering the last time you closed your eyes without feeling a needle burrowing toward your soul. One medieval monk wrote that the wound is the lusun. A nice slogan, assuming you like studying with fire ants for tutors. Another fun stat: about a third of medieval beekeepers developed chronic reactions. It gets easier, they say. Sure, if you consider numb fingers and a heart that skips like a bad lute solo easy. Not much solace when the local herbalist prescribes mashed leeks and last year's goose grease. Just smear it on and hope for divine intervention. You want prestige? Tell people how many times you got stung for the countess's honey cakes. When the king's envoy calls for honey, untouched by mortal pain, remind yourself there's always pain. If you're lucky, you keep your dignity and two functional hands. If not, you're fumbling through prayer with fingers the size of overstuffed sausages, hallucinating the Virgin Queen be whispering mockery from the shadowy rafters. Best medieval life, hack, rub mud on it and get back to work. It won't help, but it's something to do while the swelling climbs. If supplies run low, congratulations. You get bitten twice as often, twice as fast. Like overtime, but with toxins. Still chained to your hives, still not dead. Still poolsing with nature's little caffeine shots, praying next season's miracle cure involves less venom and more sitting down. You tell yourself this builds character, all while watching your knuckles inflate like parade floats. No matter how many stings you absorb, nobody's handing out medals. A splotchy wrist is the only decoration you earn. Welcome to the monastic hustle. No air, no help, no way out. You thought the worst would be the bees. That was adorable. Welcome to your skin's new side hustle rotting off. Your hands, once merely ugly, now resemble a side quest from The Last of Us starring pus. Every time you crack open a hive, something gets in. Mud, bee venom, that one squirming centipede. Just a normal morning hand salad, except every ingredient wants you dead. If you're lucky, you'll get away with swelling so cinematic it looks like you're auditioning for Shrek's left fist. Stings are your warm-up act, the bacteria are the headliners. Forget gloves. You've got sackcloth, moist, ripped, and probably sharing DNA with last week's dead goat. Poke another hive. Blisters pop, pus spills, bees laugh. Now you're in the club. Medieval beekeepers lost more fingers than a Game of Thrones wedding. Think you're immune after the third sting? Meet a new friend, cellulitis. Today's special is 3 knuckles raw with pus reduction. No bonus fries. Watch as the swelling creeps up your wrist past any medieval sleeve, and you start to wonder which will go first, your hand or your arm. Every morning you gamble in the world's grossest casino. Will you wake up with 5 fingers or a surprise sausage stump? You want stats? Try ulceras manus. Not a death metal band, just festering hand. It's your reward for getting stung, scratched, and soaked. Read necrosis, which in peasant speak means finger soup. The usual suspects: Staphylococcus aureus, streptococcus. And let's not forget whatever polite countryside fungus just moved in rent-free beneath your thumbnail. And FYI, nobody's posting this on ye olde Instagram. You just keep wrapping filthy rags and whispering prayers to Saint Ambrose, the patron of beekeepers. And let's be honest, lost causes. You think people talked about beekeeping for the honey? Wrong. It's because nobody could look away from the horror show sprouting at the end of your sleeves. Children point. Grandmothers hand you Humbra ointments that smell like old cheese left in a damp cellar. Each treatment is a new wager against infection. Mash garlic, pack the wound, chant a hymn. If that doesn't help, try Plan B. Ignore it and hope you pass out from hunger before the rot spreads. Can you treat it? Of course. Soak it in urine, says the apothecary. Rub on honey, says your mother. Honey, the multitasking medieval Neosporin, except you made it and nearly lost a thumb for the privilege. Saw it off, says reality. Charcoal poultice, says a cousin who swears it works because the village pig survived. You trade between gross ancient tuk-tuk hacks and DIY home amputation like a medieval Martha Stewart. Imagine telling people this is the price of honey and watch them reach for sugar. But wait, you're not done. Try sleeping. By dawn, half your bandages are glued to the wound with ancient pus. Good luck peeling that off. Even better, try not to notice the smell. That slow, sweet, rotten scent of meat left out behind the bakery. Your hands are the invitation, flies RSVP instantly. Nothing says artisanal living like swatting away maggots from the same hand you used to steal honey. The monks have the only clean bandages and they aren't free. Drop a coin, drop a prayer, or drop dead. It's medieval healthcare. Scroll through your options, wait in line for a prayer, trade the last of your moldy cheese, or just let the maggots finish the job. You're one festering knuckle away from starring in a cautionary woodcut warning, may contain fingers. Seasonal bonus winter. The pain freezes over for a few precious weeks. You convince yourself that maybe it's healing, but frostbite loves fresh wounds. Necrosis goes dormant like a bad huskust waiting for spring to pick up right where it left off. New blisters, new chances to regret every life choice. Don't even ask about the stairs in the market. Hide your hands in your sleeves and hope nobody sees. Spoiler, they all see. There's nothing subtle about 5 weeping sausage-sized digits. You look less like a beekeeper and more like you lost a bar fight with the entire farm. Meanwhile, you keep working. Because the hunger isn't going anywhere and bees don't mail you honey. Every jar is a risk, every sting a new bet against amputation. Sure, you could give up and starve, or keep going and maybe keep one finger for the after party. You pick. Oh, and hope you like working with oozing scars. Midwinter hits your hands freeze and the rot slows down. Not gone, just bored. You wake up each morning and count digits like bad lottery tickets. Sometimes you win, most days you just break even. Still want sweetness. Still not dead. Just a little more necrotic with every jar you steal from the hive. Like everything in medieval life, rot risks survival. And maybe if you're lucky, honey for your bread. You think you're the hero of the honey cartel. Think again. In medieval England, every time honey turns up missing, it's your face on the wanted scrolls, even if the monks drank the mead and the local lord's idea of forensics is, who looks poor and sticky? Congratulations, you just went from Beekeeper to Beelzebub. PR isn't just bad, it's animated by villagers with torches. Picture this: half the village wants your products, the other half just wants a fresh arson conviction. You could swear your hives are the only things drawing flies. You're doing the work of 10 apiarists, nursing bee stings, weathering fungus, fighting with wasps, calculating the going rate for maybe there's honey somewhere. And for what? A solid week's earnings gone when someone's dog gets stung, and suddenly you're on trial for supernatural vermin wrangling. You might imagine your worst work evaluation is an awkward Zoom with Brenda from HR. Wrong century, wrong stakes. Try Father Udruck grumbling at Vespers that his altar wax is suspiciously thin. Then watching your barn go up in holy flames. Someone's bread went moldy. Blame the beekeeper. Obviously, you trained your bees to sabotage the baker for sport. No evidence required. This is medieval public relations, trial by rumor, verdict by bonfire. Innocent until proven beekeeper. Don't think you'll outwit the system with pluck and charm. The legal process involves your neighbors forming a mob and listing your faults in rhyme if feeling creative. Your best defense is not owning a face. Last week the miller accused you of bee arson because he found singed wings in his flour. This week the butcher wants you punished for bovine vexation. You don't remember inciting cows in your job description. But logic isn't a survival skill, scapegoating is. And every village needs a scapegoat with plausible deniability and hands full of stings. Oh, and here's the punchline: Henry III once ordered every beehive in London's suburbs burned during an outbreak of bee fever. Nobody knows what bee fever is. You suspect it's a polite way of saying, the king's bored and likes fire. One royal panic, you're out 6 years' wages and a lifetime supply of degree burns. Bee fever not contagious but highly flammable. Will someone come to your rescue? Only if they want your hives. The friar will bless your bees for a fee the same day the reeve fines you for heresy, theft, and excessive buzzing. Newsflash, that's not a joke. In 1234, a northern manor tried a swarm for assault. The jury found the bees guilty. Punishment: drowning. Bees can't swim, you can't win. Even the lawsuits are surreal. But don't worry, your neighbors love you until a kid gets stung. Now you're literally the villain in every cautionary tale. Don't go near old Wolfhold's fence or her army of bees will get you. Not her actual bees, mind you, just any random insect with wings and a bad attitude. Because every medieval village needs a scapegoat, and you come with automatic plausible deniability. Guilt travels faster than honey spoils. The squire's horse bucked him off. Must have smelled your hives. Piglet got sick. Buswacha. Storm blew down the maypole. Guess who's cursed? Your apologies mean less than a church tithe in February. By the time the friar says, "Let us pray for the soul of our sticky neighbor," you're lucky if your roof's still on. Your options: grovel, flee, or invent 800-year-old insurance fraud. Spoiler alert, there's no medieval flow from progressive to bail you out. The only thing anyone insures is their right to torch your property first and ask questions. Never. Still chained. Still not dead. Still debating whether beef fever is worse than public opinion. Reputation here is terminal. It's not about what you did, it's about what someone claims you looked like you could do in a dark alley with a jar. Your best hope is that a new scandal arrives. A three-eyed sheep, a baker missing a toe, to distract the mob for a while. Until then, each sunrise is a coin toss. Maybe your hives survive untouched, maybe you're nominated for most likely to conjure plagues. Classic medieval PR: half hallucination, half arson with a generous smear of honey for plausible denial. Try not to stand out, but good luck blending in with the world's most inconvenient livestock glued to your pockets. They say bees are a gift from God. Apparently so are bonfires. You called it rock bottom. Medieval life calls it Tuesday. Your day's already gone sideways. The bees hated you, your own hands swollen like sacks of spoiled apples, and you'd kill for a sick day. Instead, you get a neighborhood conference, everyone gathered in their worst wool, trading alibis and bad ideas. Only in the Middle Ages does community spirit translate to firewood and the world's most judgmental sungalong. Take a breath, if the smoke will let you. Turns out the worst way to stand out locally is to survive a mysterious cough. Even worse, being the sole beekeeper when 2 cows croak, or God help you when that rushy monk with zero hygiene gets creative with blame. One bad week in the village, logic leaps from "how's your honey harvest?" to "so about those demonic bees you're keeping in your pantry." You thought medieval rumors spread fast. Faster than lice, sharper than pitchforks. Accusation is a community sport, evidence is a party trick nobody bothers learning. Today's headline: witchcraft confirmed, found near beehive. No one cares that you saved half the harvest last spring. Gratitude's got a shelf life shorter than unsalted butter. Ask the bread lady. She's still overshadowed by her alleged love affair with pigeons. Priests. Solution-oriented. If the answer isn't prayer or more taxes, it's fire. These guys built their entire professional brand around roasting heretics and stirring the pot, sometimes literally. As for mercy, blink and you'll miss it, buried somewhere between a 3-hour sermon and the bonfire kindling list. Guilty until proven blaze. Still think you can win them over with your tragic family history or your Bible collection. Please. Trial by mob is less law and order and more a fireworks display starring you and 3 pounds of dry grass. The audience: old men in brown teeth, gossiping seamstresses, and bored kids with stones. Your only fan left is probably a cat someone's half convinced you turned into at midnight. Let's talk sensory detail. Imagine the crackle of damp straw refusing to catch the sharp tang of burning livestock hair. Choking heat that leaves you blinking, watering, wishing you understood prayer in Latin. Someone's thrown an apple at your feet, generous if your hands weren't tied. It bounces off the mud next to whatever's left of last week's scapegoat. If you're lucky, they burn you at sunset. Just enough light for the crowd, not so much that anyone sticks around to watch the smoke keep rising. You thought public shamming was invented online. Congratulations, you're now streaming live for the entire manor. Comments section brick, like YouTube minus delete. Your names mud, your story reduced to an after-dinner anecdote. Forget last words, you'll be lucky if anyone remembers your initials. Next week, same crowd, different victim, identical sermon. This isn't a cautionary tale, it's workplace risk assessment medieval edition. Try not to think about the French beekeepers of 1321. Real people, real torches, real accusations of sorcery and plug munjang. The actual Black Death wouldn't show up for decades, but panic always runs ahead of schedule. Beekeepers were rounded up, interrogated, and when the mob was feeling thorough, replaced with charcoal. Fun stat: rumors kill faster than infection. No vaccine, no loophole, just the sound of your cottage roof collapsing in cinders. Ask yourself, was it worth it for a pot of honey? Only if you're allergic to happy endings. No air, no help, no way out. Maybe there's a lesson in don't be essential. Maybe not. In this postcode, you're a hashtag away from the ash heap, and no, the bees don't send condolences. The small print no one mentions public torture is less about evidence, more about vibes. One offhand cough, one strange prayer in the field, and you're medieval trending. Burn the evidence, burn the witness, and when in doubt, burn the beekeeper. The ultimate recycling program. So, you lose your house, your livelihood, your shot at a normal Wednesday. The only upside, property values just cratered. Real estate pro tip medieval edition: nothing clears out a hive like public immolation. New neighbors, don't worry, they'll be looking for witches too. Maybe next year someone will remember you fondly for your honey. Or maybe all that will be left is a patch of scorched earth no one wants to dig up. Still burnt, still not missed. Welcome to the neighborhood. You thought your biggest problem was bee stings. Wrong. Now the sheriff wants an official taste of your product, preferably straight from your best comb, not those mystery jars you pawn off on tourists. Suddenly your livestock squeak less than you do. Why does the law need so much honey? Ask the guy muttering about wax for seals with a grin like a broken lantern. Payment in product, not coin. Also voluntary in the way medieval taxes are suggestions. King Henry II made it a law. Your options: hand over the prime honey or watch your hives confiscated by men with more swords than teeth. Love the legal system. Wait until bailiffs start dipping out of your winter stash, like Robin Hood but worse breath. Want to complain? Enjoy the stocks. You can wave to your honey as it's reallocated to the nearest monastery. You want examples? How about getting woken up at dawn as the reeve tramps into your yard, already tasting your honey in his rotten mouth? Last year he brought an abbot and 3 muscle-bound witnesses. The abbot, famously allergic, inspected every frame just in case you swapped out the good stuff for the dregs. One beekeeper in Sussex got caught mixing in river water. Now he's stacking carts in the next village, and rumor says they even tax the mud on his boots. It's not even about what's fair. The quotas show up scrawled on sheepskin ink running from the last rainstorm, always bigger than last month, 2 gallons for the church. Then the manor wants cakes for a wedding, and the apothecary claims he's curing melancholy with a daily honey bath. Missing a drop is a punishable offense, but guessing how much a drop means is your problem. Fill the sheriff's jug. How big is the jug? Big enough. Next thing you know, he's swapped out his drinking horn for a cauldron. They say ignorance of the law is no excuse. Guess what else isn't an excuse? Having nothing left but smoked-out bees and a prayer. You kept the books, you even greased the reeve with wax. Still, they want more. At this point, it's like running a startup where every investor is armed and believes in witch trials. Failure isn't pivot and try again. It's a midnight audience with the bailiff trying to explain hive losses while someone sharpens a pike. Let's negotiate. Good luck. Try to barter, offer candles, offer bread, offer a heartfelt speech about bee population collapse. The law likes honey so much it forgets the bees, and now you're on the menu. Maybe next year they'll require your firstborn too. Wouldn't be the weirdest livestock substitution this week. Look for a loophole. Find a friendly scribe. Fake a swarm loss. Doesn't matter. Every hustle is riskier than the last. Smuggling honey under your tunic, praying the reeves blind in his left eye, developing sudden apian allergies. When the count's men come calling. Fail and you're marked for honey fraud. Real charge. Real punishments. Last season they made a woman in Kent sweep the abbey steps for a month while the monks dripped honey on her shoes for temptation's sake. 2 days in, she just licked her heels and ran. Every edict is a trap disguised as a request. Fulfilling the quota, still suspect. Coming up short, guilty. Hide the best batch and you're an enemy of the realm. Welcome to the only economy where side hustle means smuggling jars up your tunic and praying the dog doesn't sniff you out. Every time there's a festival suddenly, there are mandatory donut puns, which means you of course are chosen to bring sweets. Forget that you're down to crumbs and wax shavings at home. People have confessed under torture for less. Blame a rival, blame a bear, blame divine swarm intervention. Won't matter. If the honey's gone and the sheriff's hungry, you're suddenly the most wanted man since the last scapegoat got tarred and feathered in front of the alehouse. Still chained. Still not dead. Just sweater than you wanted. Think the worst is over. Wait till next season when famine hits and the Lord discovers honey as essential medicine. Now you're expected to supply the manor's sick ward, half the villagers, and whatever's left for your own survival. Community spirit means you starve quietly while everyone else enjoys a honeyed feast. Statistically, half the prisoners died in a week. You're on day 6. The honey's gone. The demands are not, and still, the sheriff's at your door asking if you've held anything back for emergencies. You nod, you point at your empty hands. He points at the stocks. Still chained, still not dead. For now, hope you like the taste of despair with your breakfast. You call it home, but what you really mean is a box full of damp stone, wood rot, and honey on everything. Floors, walls, your one good shirt. All a sticky tribute to the medieval concept of janitorial work, which is let the bees clean it. Pro tip: they don't. Cottages were cute in Instagram posts. In 1358, they were just larger, colder hives, except you paid rent to a lord, not the bees. Thatched roofs, allegedly rustic, actually mossy, sagging, and occasionally falling into your soup. Insulation meant whatever animal skin was decomposing on the bed tonight. The queen had a throne. You had a chair if you could pry it loose from the resin mud and a crust of old mead stains. No wonder half the medieval saints had visions indoors. Try hallucinating when every plank in your house oozes more than your infected hand. Everything smells like bad cough syrup, wet straw, and fear. The air is thick with things that buzz, bite, and leave little acidic gifts in your food. Summer. Enjoy the adrenaline-pumping sound of wasps launching sorties from the rafters. Winter. Good luck. Honey freezes, boots stick, bones ache. Like sleep. Too bad. Every second night a bee brings home 30 friends. You swat one and suddenly it's the opening credits of a nature documentary, starring you, and you're not the apex predator. You think you'll develop a taste for honey. You won't. Not after you pry it out from under your fingernails twice a day. 1 quick inventory: 3 ruined tunics, 5 vertical streaks of blood, 1 relationship, and your left dignity stuck to the bedroom floor. Local flavor, the Lord calls it while scraping his boots before entering. The Latin word for comfort is consolatio. Nobody ever wrote that on your gravestone. Too sticky. You wonder if anyone ever actually sits down. Furniture is hypothetical. Benches weld themselves to the floor with a decade of unwashed wax. Beds, planks and loose straw marinating in anxiety and occasional mouse urine. You share a pillow with 3 generations of lice. Luxury medieval style, not getting tetanus from the family table. But if the floor doesn't get you, the bureaucracy will. Welcome to hereditary job security, meaning you and your kids get to hand wash yesteryear's honey vomit out of this place while Lord Bumblefluff skims off the top. Try selling a sustainable work-from-home lifestyle to your descendants as you chisel wax off a rock while the bailiff peeks through the one hole in the wall you didn't clog with moss. Forget benefits. Your retirement plan is the sweet release of plague, or if you're lucky, a collapsed roof. Want privacy? Medieval architecture says no. Your walls, a medieval suggestion, slightly less porous than gossip. Sap leaks in wind, leaks out, neighbors' arguments seep through like cheap perfume. Got secrets? Not anymore. If it isn't stuck to your possessions, it's stuck in your ears. Personal space, a radical new concept arriving in about 600 years. Maintenance means guessing which crack in the floor is widening fastest, and whether patching it with last year's bread crust will slow the rodents down. If not, the pet weasel in the pantry auditions for the role of pest control and loses. Life hack: a healthy colony of spiders blocks drafts. Downside: spiders. Care to decorate? Sure. Try ornamental mildew. Maybe a tapestry woven from regret and mold spores. A wall hanging of the Virgin Mary slowly merging with a honey stain. If you're rich, 2 holes in the roof let in both sunlight and rain. If not, enjoy artisanal darkness interrupted only by the glint of angry insect eyes. Don't like the view? Move. Just chip yourself loose from the honey throne, dodge the bees, and don't forget your shoes. Pack light. The rent collector doesn't accept sticky IOUs. Your place or mine? Usually neither. Sure, there's camaraderie. Nothing bonds people like mutual suffering and a total lack of personal boundaries. Your social events: emergency thatching, lice festivals, communal gloom. Family time means arguing over who gets to scrape dinner's remains from a bowl before the dog licks it clean. How medieval were you? Let's check. Do your feet stick when you walk or just when you think about running away? Sticky walls, sticky floors, still not dead for now. Cozy if your definition of home is trap. You survive by adapting, mostly by lowering your standards. Welcome home. Wipe your feet if you can. Congratulations. You've survived the bees. Now try surviving medieval paperwork. You thought agony was 1,000 stings to the face. Wait until you meet the honey tax ledger. Forget running from an angry hive. Try outrunning a monk with a quill and a vague sense of property law. Every coin you earn is a coin someone in a robe wants for the abbey. Translation: you're subsidizing candle wax and confession booths. Beekeeping isn't a profession. It's a performance art for clerks who get sweaty over revenue streams. There's a rule for everything: how many bees per scup when you can set a hive near a hedge, and whether your wax is church grade or peasant slop. Regulations written by people who get dizzy standing up, enforced by people who can't count their own toes but can price a pint of honey down to the gnat's eyelash. King Edward III, patron saint of please pay up. Once levied honey rent so high monks started skipping prayer to count jars. Lords loved a luxury tax, which meant your sweet side hustle just got audited by the local baron and his feudal finance squad. Try explaining a bad harvest to some stone-faced prior with gout. Spoiler: your sorry bee story just cost you a week's rations. Bees die in winter, so should your excuses. Don't miss the annual honey tithe, a festival of forced giving, where half your year's labor disappears into the ecclesiastical void. The church wants 10%, the Lord wants 5%, the reeve wants a sample. Before you know it, you're left with 3 crusts of black bread and a mysterious rash. The phrase liquid gold, loses its shine when you're forced to hand it over to a bishop who considers tooth decay a sign of wealth. Here, the fun twist your legal rights. Trapped under more red tape than a Victorian Christmas present. Step off your plot trespass by the width of one goat and you're up before the manorial court. Find 3 chickens and a public apology even if your bees wandered over the line, which they always do because bees can't read charters or respect property. Lose 1 bee to a neighbor's flowers, expect passive-aggressive stares, followed by a low-key arson epidemic. Like Ubn, but with more torches and fewer positive reviews. Paperwork. 4 types. Writs, fines, oaths, and spontaneous accusations. Writs with enough Latin to make the devil yawn. Fines for everything improper, jar shape, substandard wax, violating curfew because your bees fly at suspicious hours. Oaths you don't understand and don't dare break. Spontaneous accusations. Because what if your honey is too clear and someone's cousin got sick? Can't read? Join the club. Your options: invent X marks and pray no one checks, or bribe a semi-literate cousin to fake your paperwork. Most villagers couldn't tell a deed from a dinner menu. By the time the reeves done clarifying your obligations, you might as well be working for free, except for the privilege of washing honey out of your hair with a rock. Spoiler: honey doesn't come out and neither does shame. Want a break? Accidentally signed the wrong form and you've pledged eternal fealty, or worse, lost your claim to the winter stores. Some poor bastard a village over got all his hives seized for clerical deviation. That means the monk spilled ale on the paperwork and blamed you. You're 1 ink splatter away from bankruptcy. And if you think this is rock bottom, you haven't met the village scribe, half-literate all power. Convinced a clerical error is reversible but degree burns are. This guy chews reads, forgets your last name, and files your tithe receipts under misfortune. Misplace a single measure of honey on your tally, and suddenly you're on trial for fraud, witchcraft, or both. At least a bee only kills you once. Bureaucrats can keep stinging every year forever. There are audits, medieval audits. Picture 4 robed men and a sheep examining your hives while mumbling about spiritual cleanliness. Bees get blamed for bad weather, poor crops, or the reeves hangover. A single miscount and suddenly you're confessing to consorting with fairies. Payment plans. Payment plans involve working off your debt, building a fence with splintered hands while the reeve eats your bread. Miss a payment. Your best hive gets reallocated for the public good. Try explaining that to your empty stomach. The real agony isn't in the stings or the endless chores. It's the parade of feet trudging to your door, each with a new demand, a new fee, a new set of rules. 3 jars for the parson. 1 for the bailiff's sickly daughter. Half a jar for the maintenance of a road that's just muddy death with extra ruts. If you set aside the best comb for your own family, expect accusations of hoarding. Everyone wants a taste until there's nothing left but crumbs and bee legs. But hey, still chained, still not dead, still haven't paid this year's mite. Like honey, misery just keeps dripping. Plague, famine. You always thought these were the twin bugamon. But at least you told yourself you had bees. A little slice of sticky winged hope. Bad news: your glimmer of sweetness comes wrapped in about 20,000 venomous existential crises. The medieval good life, where at least you have honey, just means you get to die with flavor. You think locusts were bad for crops. Try explaining supply chain issues to swarms of hungry monks and mad nobles who treat honey like Bitcoin. Liquid gold hoarded in Wushapud, but try coughing up your taxes in sticky jars and see how far you get. Climate throws a tantrum, your neighbors burn your hives. By accident, monks want tithes, rain won't fall, plagues won't stop, and you're the only one in the village who smells like a walking threat. The local bishop claims honey can purge the soul or at least make saints less twitchy, but don't expect him to take a sting for you. Everybody's starving, but you're just the guy with bee welts and trust issues. There's famine, and then there's fasting by force. Bread turns to mold, cabbage rots, but honey almost never does. If you can keep it, doesn't matter. They'll peel the wax from your hands before letting you feed yourself, and somehow the Lord always gets his cut. God will provide, they say, while you pry bee corpses off your only spoon. Sweetness is for Sundays and the sick, or for bribing the reeve when your bees swarm the wrong field. If you want a taste, good luck. Chew the comb, pray for leftovers, call it nutrition. Your daily gift, the sound of 1,000 bees screaming. Because while famine eats crops and plague eats lungs, your bees just decide, overnight, that collective suicide is an option. Colony collapse. Matthew Paris, chronicler extraordinaire, thought bees dying off was obviously your fault, God's wrath upon slovenly husbandry. Translating from monk speak, you personally caused the apocalypse. Probably didn't sweep your hovel well enough or let your bees mate on the wrong feast day. Maybe you sneezed during Mass. Mid-stroke, the Lord's bees go on strike. But why do bees die really? Cold snaps, chuckbrood, smoke from yet another peasant bonfire, mold, mites, poison from your neighbor's ragweed herb garden, or just communal despair. Sometimes it's the weather, sometimes it's witchcraft. A beekeeper's eye-rolling forecast, frost, famine, swarming, mysterious death. Try to explain ecology and you'll be accused of heresy. The science. There is no science. Only maybe your bees sin too. Worse, your success just paints a target on your back. Survive one bad year and now you're the local sugar dealer. The king wants wax for his candles, the abbey wants mead, villagers want a miracle, and the bailiff wants 5 jars or your teeth. You can't win. Too little honey and you're a failure, too much and you're a thief. Every sticky drop is a liability. Every sting looks deliberate. How many queens can one man lose before he's cussed? That's your family motto now. Meanwhile, the peasants invent honey-based superstitions. Rub it on boils, anoint doorposts, drop it in the well for luck. Mead is half medicine and half excuse. Got a cough? Try honey. Got the plague? Still honey. No honey, that's why you died. Simple math. No one remembers to thank the bees or you when next spring anything survives. But there's always next year, right? Wrong. Spoiler, next year is also on fire, but with more boils and fewer bees. Everyone wants honey, no one wants blame. Next winter, just tell yourself your hands stung for a reason. At least you never got the plague. Oh wait, that's just the swelling, still sticky, still aching, still chained to the world's least grateful livestock. Food's vanished, livestock's dying, but you, dear beekeeper, are still standing, sort of. Hive empty, smoke lingers. No one believes the queen's dead, they just think you pocketed her out of spite. He's hiding honey, they mutter, like you're running the black market out of your apiary, or a cult, or both. Suddenly it's a crime to own jars. Confess your sweetness, sinner. You dream of a world without bees. Bees dream of a world without you. You ever see a village with honey jar futures? You're living it. No bees left, no honey, nothing but excuses and suspicious glances. The only sweet thing these people remember is blaming you. Plague, famine. At least you had bees. Oh, you survived the famine, dodged the plague, and still end up in a ditch, but with really soft hands. That's your big reward, prestige for the Lord's pus for the peasant hero. You didn't devise smoke, big stick, not dead. You're just the punchline in someone else's dynastic sludge. When Abbot Mulata steals your hives for God's glory, his reputation blooms into sainthood. You get tetanus and a funeral behind the late-stage apiary, half-eaten by pigs. The bees outlast you. The honey outlasts the bees. Your name, it endures about as long as the next village scandal, Saint Someone's Bee miracle, or King John's campaign to decree all honey is now property of the crown. Neither the holy nor the royal has ever yanked a stinger from their own tongue, let alone with a rotted splinter scavenged from the floor of a foggy hut. Congratulations, Your legacy is a warning, like do not lick this toad or beehive not a helmet. You wanted to be remembered for innovation, turns out you're immortalized as beware death by bees is both frequent and inefficient. Fast forward one anxious generation. Your neighbors invent a new tradition, light torches and scream every time a hive swarms. Your grandkids quietly change their last name from the Beekeeper to something generic. Nobody admits to knowing you. History forgets the sticky hands, but medieval law never forgets the tax ledgers. You could blindfold Charlemagne and still find him paw-deep in someone else's apiary. He ate so much honey local monks renamed a callus after him. You just get the blisters. No feast, just open sores and a laugh track of well-meaning curses. You are the prototype for every "don't try this at home" safety manual. Some lawyer in a robe jots your life into the margins. Possible side effects include death, pain, loss of dignity. If this sounds bleak, remember everyone around you is dying of something grim and preventable, usually while working for someone else's miracle. Like medieval yubba, but the only fare is pain. Your exceptional technique, mask made of damp rags, ritual prayers, torch in your mouth, gets remembered as reckless. You become the patron saint of bad ideas. Next time someone says just follow your passion, point them to your wormy gravestone. Plenty of passion, not a lot of pension. Did you want a legacy? Here. What you get: a warning label. Not a statue, not a ballad. A hastily painted plank nailed to a fence reading, do not approach hives unless you're tired of living. Your legendary misadventure gets retold as a bedtime threat for skittish kids. Try the bees and you'll end up with hands like grandpa did not listen. Your body: count 1. Maybe 2, if you count the goats who overindulged on honeycomb scraps after the fact. Your reward for a lifetime of risk: a funeral service conducted by the same abbot who relieved you of your hives and spends the next week bragging about his miraculous record harvest. You die empty-handed, he gets a silver chalice engraved with someone else's effort. Cultural memory is a sieve. Only the big chunks of superstition get kept. When the next drought hits, everyone blames the bad beekeeper for angering the goddess of honey, keeping you employed posthumously as a scapegoat for things that never made sense. Meanwhile, a soft-handed abbot wipes your blood off his cassock, calls it a miracle, and gets a feast day. Fact: half the village died last winter from spoiled honey. You're not sure if the cause was botulism or bureaucracy. The coroner lists it as act of God. You get nothing. Not even a single honest epitaph. Your best line could have been worse, which statistically is debatable. Beef fever versus medieval dentistry is a race with no real winners. Pain, you find, is cyclical. The hives always need tending, the Lord's kitchen always needs sweetening. Honey is temporary. Prestige is a coin you never see except as a tax you can't pay. What lasts? The medieval version of PR. Violence, rumor, and a pile of bones nobody's willing to move. So congratulations. You are living proof that ambition is indistinguishable from accident. If you're remembered at all, it's because someone needs an example of how not to die, or occasionally how not to live. Your future job description: cautionary tale. Still chained to the gig. Still not dead, until beef fever disagrees. If they ever name a miracle after you, it's because the paperwork was misfiled, not because you mattered. The last sound you hear is someone laughing as they snatch your hive and call it providence. The bees finish what history started. You want to taste sweetness. Hope you like the flavor of someone else's legacy washed down with your blood. The king holds up a golden chalice, toasts nature's miracle to Lord credit for everything. Guess who actually sweated for that honey? Not the guy in the velvet hat. No, it's you scraping bee vomit from broken combs with fingers so swollen they'd make medieval E.T. jealous. And it's not just the king. Every time a gloved noblewoman dabs honeycomb to her lips and sighs about the labor of simple folk, you're there in spirit, specifically the spirit being trampled by oxen as you chase torn bee skeps across the mud. Funny thing, gift from God. Did God also invent chunmal sleeves or just sit back and watch you collect a dozen new stings under your tunic? There's the miracle your hands still kind of work. You do remember that time Lady Godiva rode naked through Coventry for the people. Of course you don't, you're too busy counting stings, not silks. When nobles write poems about the sweet gift of summer, that's your weekly allergy attack and lingering nerve damage immortalized in verse. Like every group project, they get the presentation, you get the late-night PowerPoint and the panic attack. Because make no mistake, all those feasts the gentry throw to show off, rare sweets for king and crust, that's you grinding your back into the dirt and praying the Lord's hounds don't drink the wash water before you do. Your children know feast day as the day they get to see what honeycomb looks like, assuming someone drops a crust on the floor. You're not even a silent partner here, you're the guy who fixes the medieval AV cables, then stands outside the banquet hall catching the echoes. The local abbot prays you into the donors list. Chroniclers like Methia Paris scribble about the marvels of Hunna, as if all that gold just dripped from heaven. Meanwhile, you cough up wax in the dark corner behind the stables. No air, no feasts, no applause. Just the joy of your knots tightening as kicks from the Lord's boots encourage rapid honey extraction. Medieval cheerleading, no pom-poms, all bruises. And let's talk safety gear. Modern beekeepers get mesh helmets, smoke machines, customized gloves. You get a sackcloth shirt, 10 bee stings in the eyelid, and a "why are you slowing down?" For ointment, maybe the kitchen girl sneaks you a rotten onion. Factory accidents before factories were cool. Somehow worse when you can't read the warnings. Congratulations, you're living proof that trickle-down economics started with hives. Got a royal order for mead. Enjoy your annual raise, a handful of crumbs, 6 new scars, and maybe a God bless you if your lord feels especially empathetic that hour. They drink liquid sunlight you suck on your own swollen thumb. Still itchy. Still anonymous. What about skills? Those hands shaking with nerve damage are rumored holy. You hear the whispers beekeepers touch. He must have a pact with fairies. Yeah, right. If you had supernatural power, step 1, retire. Step 2, move to a warmer century. Instead, every blessing is another job unpaid because the bishop's niece has a cough and only the honey man's balm will do. You heal her throat, then rub your own raw skin with mud. Medieval gratitude, invisible, contagious, fatal when untreated. And don't go thinking freedom comes after the honey harvest. That jar you risked your life for is passed from noble to bishop to cousin to bribe each stop a new toast to local artisans. You are the utasen, sa, unpaid, uncredited, uninvited. They debate your future in Latin, then send servants to steal your candles. You know, just in case you thought you owned something. Every banquet in the big stone manor. That's your stings curdled and spooned over a lord's gouty meat. Ussent legacy beautiful. And every time the sweet taste hits a hubban tongue somewhere in the background, you're spitting out splinters and wiping bee guts off your sackcloth. It's not tradition unless it hurts right. Nobles get the aftertaste you get, medieval health care. Nothing. They say labor is its own reward. Must have been invented by someone who never had to pick stingers from their face with the same fingers they use to beg in winter. Half the disease, none of the glory. At best, you get to live long enough to hear a new rumor someone at court has a bee-shaped gold seal. You gave them the design by accident while bleeding on the wax. Somewhere there's a statue of a famous beekeeper. No, wait, they're ussent. Not even a plaque, just another faceless peasant melting in the records like honey on hot bread. Stop scratching. Your hand's their legacy, still chained, still not dead, still allergic to nobility.